So we're going to continue talking about routing in Pro Tools. And I just want to go over the notes on sending a track to reverb. And this is all the stuff we just talked about here, just all written down in notes. And if you ever forget how to send a track to reverb or how to send some kind of a signal to the reverb, you can just come back here to these notes right here, and it has everything in a step-by-step order for you. As long as you follow this order, you'll be good to go. So first of all, you create a stereo aux track and name it reverb. Put a reverb plugin on it. That just makes sense, right? If you name a track reverb, make sure you put a reverb plugin on it. Doesn't really matter which reverb you use, whatever one is your favorite one. And I should clarify that by saying it absolutely matters which one you use, but I don't care which one it is. It's just whatever one is your favorite reverb that you like to use. Set up the input on the aux track to bus 1 and 2. Make sure it's a stereo bus, make sure it's a stereo aux. That's really important. Decide which track or tracks you want to send to the reverb. For example, the snare and 3 toms or 2 toms or however many toms you want to send. Utilize the sends, not the output of the tracks. Bus 1 and 2 use the same bus as in step number 2. Whatever bus you set your input to, set the output to that same bus from the sends, and then set the send amount for each track so it sounds good to your ear. So let's just go through this real quick here and let's show what we can do here. So I'm going to go ahead and change all of these here so there's no send. I'm going to go ahead and delete out these 2 tracks here as well so we don't have any aux tracks in here. Good. Okay, so I'm just going to turn on all my tracks so we've got every single track. Now, right now, we've got our drums here, we've got our guitars, we've got our verses. I'm going to go ahead and take all these drums and go ahead and group them together. I'm going to make my drums, group drums. Aux, the ID here is going to be D for drums. There we go. And my bass, my guitars here, we're going to go ahead and set the guitars up with the group as well. Boom, guitars. And that's going to be G for guitars. And you notice that I'm setting all of these up here. This is not something you have to do, but I do recommend doing it. I think it's a pretty good thing to do here. So now I've got these here, and you can see these are all going out to my main output over here. If I hit play, just another night till I saw you there. All right, so you can hear everything sounds pretty good. But there's no reverb on it. So let's go ahead and get some reverb going. Let's start with our vocals and get some reverb going on the vocals here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new stereo aux track. If we go back here to step number 1 here, create a stereo aux track. Boom, I'm going to name it reverb. I'm going to name it vocal reverb so I know exactly which reverb it is. Or you could call it reverb vocal if you want to do it that way. I have tried to start putting the name of the effect first. For years I've been trying to do this, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I still forget and I put like vocal reverb, but it should be, in my opinion, it should be reverb vocal. So I've got this here, I've got this reverb vocal here, and we're going to go ahead and put a reverb on it. So I'm going to use the Air Spring Reverb, which also does come with Pro Tools. It's a little, actually, sorry, not the Spring Reverb, what am I doing? Not the Spring Reverb, that would be more for guitar stuff. Let's use the Air Reverb, regular reverb here, boom. I'm going to use this one here. And let's just pull up a preset in here. Let's just use a basic, basic medium reverb here. There we go. And we just want to make sure, with reverbs especially, but just with anything you've got on a send effect, make sure the mix is all the way up to 100%. You don't want to have any of the dry signal in there. So I got the reverb mix here at 100%. And we're going to go over here to this one here, our reverb vocal, the aux track we just made, and we're going to do a couple things. First of all, we're going to solo safe it, which I hold down Command and click it here, solo safe, to make sure that it always plays through. The signal is always going to be on no matter what I solo in the track. Solo safe is actually quite important. We want to make sure that we always activate it here. I think it's in the notes for tomorrow. I could be wrong about that though. It's definitely in the notes in one of these days coming up, but solo safe, Command S to hold down Command and click the solo button here to solo save that track. Next, according to our notes, the next thing is we're going to set up the input on the aux track to bus 1 and 2. Now, the bus number that we use really depends on what's already being used. And in Pro Tools, if you're already using a bus, it's going to be orange. Anything that you're currently using is going to be an orange color. In this case, there's nothing that's orange, so we're just going to go ahead and use bus 1 and 2 here. So now the input says bus 1 and 2. Now we want to decide which tracks where we want to send to the reverb. In this case here, we want to send our vocal verse and our vocal chorus to the reverb over here. So we're going to go over here to our sends and just to send A, whichever one you want. It doesn't really matter, but in this case, we're going to go send A. We're going to send it to the same bus here. Boom, bus 1 and 2, and same thing, bus 1 and 2. And you can see, if I want to change this, I can click on this little arrow here. See the arrow right there? I can click on the arrow, and I go over here to bus, and I just want to show you what I mean by it turns orange. See, it's kind of this yellow-orange color. That means that I'm already using it, and this is good. We want both of these to go to the same bus, 1 and 2. We're going to see when I do my drums in just a second that we're not going to send them to the same bus, so we want to choose a different one. But for now, it's okay that it's orange. So I'm going to go ahead and let's solo this track.
Just another night until I saw you there. She was so complex, I had to study every layer.
All right, there we go. There's that. And we're going to send the same one over here. I'm going to click on this one. And you can see I don't really like using this little small fader here because I can't see it well enough. It's just too small for me. So I like to click on it and it pulls up this fader here, the longer fader. It's like more of a full-size fader, and pull it up and use that. I'm going to go down here and make sure we're listening to our chorus. Oh, I need to solo it.
Who are you? Who are you, my love?
Awesome. Sounds good. Okay, so now both of these are going to the same reverb right here, this air reverb. They're both going to the same reverb. Now let's get our drums in a nice little reverb section. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this room R here because that's the last drum. I'm going to hit Command-Shift-In, and I'm going to pull this over, hit 1 and down, and this is our stereo aux input here, and we're going to give this a name, let's name it reverb drum. Here we go, boom. And one more time, the reason why I'm putting the name reverb first is so that I just know that this is a reverb, and then I know which track it's being sent from. So we've got this here. I'm going to turn off my solo on these, and let's solo out my drums here. There we go, solo out the drums. And make sure I solo safe this reverb. So I'm going to hold down Command and click the solo button, so now it's always going to be soloed. It's always going to play through even if I'm soloing these tracks over here. Let's just look at our notes one more time. Set up the input on the aux track. Input here. And this time we're not going to go to bus 1 and 2 because we're already using bus 1 and 2 for our vocal reverb, right? So let's just take a look at our notes over here again real quick that I just drew. And it's like this. We have already 2 tracks going to bus 1 here. Bus 1 and 2, bus 1, boom, this one and this one here. We want to have these new tracks we've got going to a different bus. So in this case, maybe bus 3 or something. So you can see this bus here, it's a different destination because it's a different name, and we choose these here to send from to go to this destination. So with the drums, I want to make sure that all my tracks are sending to this aux channel here and not this aux channel over here. This aux channel here is my reverb for vocal. This one here is my reverb for drums. So because these are drum tracks, I'm going to set this one up to be a different bus number. So it's bus 1 and 2 here. Now we're going to set it up for bus 3 and 4 like this. And it says bus 3 and 4. Let's put a reverb on it. Let's use a different reverb than what we used for our vocals. We're going to use that Deverb. Comes with Pro Tools. It's like the Pro Tools basic one here. We're going to use room 2. And everything else is fine. You can see here the mix is already set to 100%. All this other stuff we can set later on to make adjustments as we see fit here. And so we got this. Now we need just to send these tracks over to this 3 and 4. Now in this case, I don't want to send my kick drum over to that reverb. This is pretty common where you don't send the kick drum. It really depends on what you're doing. Actually, let's send the kick drum over, but let's not send much of the kick drum. So I'm going to set my send here for the bus 3 and 4. There it is. And all these channels here, I'm going to just set to bus 3 and 4. Now here's a little cool little secret that you can use, a little tip, is if I set 1 here, I'm going to set it. You can hear that. I'm going to pull that down because I don't want my kick drum to go much to that reverb at all. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, after I set it up here, I'm going to hold down Option and I'm going to click and drag it over, and it's going to set it up with the same amount on it. I'm going to turn this one up a little bit. There we go. Drag these over, this one. And if I have any like panning going on here with these toms, let's go ahead and pan the toms. I would actually probably want to set so it follows the same one a little bit there. It doesn't have to, and it's a setting that you can set actually. So your send pan follows your main pan. You can set that up in your preferences if you want. I'm not going to do that right now, but I am just going to make sure that these all are set for basically the same. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. So I just set those up. Now let's listen. Awesome. Now a little trick here, a little tip I should say, is that when you have this set up, if you want more or less reverb sound happening, you can actually adjust your return here to have more or less reverb sound in the mix, in the overall mix. So if I want to hear less reverb in my mix, I can just turn this down. If I turn this all the way down, remember, this is the sound of our reverb coming back to our mix. I can turn this all the way down and check this out. There's no reverb at all. Let me pull this up. And now we can hear the reverb there. If I want a lot of reverb, I can turn this up more. Because what we're doing is we're controlling the amount of reverb that we are hearing. If I want to hear more reverb, we just turn up that reverb return. If I want to hear less reverb, we turn down that reverb return. Let's turn it down a little bit right there. Great. Now let's listen to our vocals as well.
Who are you? Who are you, my love?
Sounds great. Okay, cool. Now let's go over here. I'm going to unsolo these tracks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this to a mute on my guitars, because now I want to hear my guitar, my bass with my drums and my vocals.
Who are you? Who are you, my love?
Awesome. Okay, great. Now, the bass guitar here, we're probably not going to add any reverb to it because it's a bass guitar. We don't really need to add reverb to a bass guitar. If you want to, you can. It's a total stylistic choice. In this case, I'm not going to. But I am going to add a little bit of compression to that guitar, just to kind of, the bass guitar, just to make sure it sounds like steady. So it's not like a bunch of loud, soft, loud, soft, loud, soft things happening in here. So I'm just going to go in here and let's just use a gentle, well, here, we'll just put this on.
Who are you? Who are you, my love?
Turn this down a little bit. Cool. All right, and what that's going to do, that setting, you're just going to have it so if it pops up above that, if it's like gets loud suddenly, it's just going to like basically keep it down so it's not too loud. All right. So I got a little compression on there, and these guitars, finally, let's send the guitars to a reverb as well. So following our notes here, create a stereo aux track, name it, put the reverb plugin on it, set up the input, set up the outputs, or my sends outs of the track, not the output, but from the send out, same buses in step number 2, and then set the send amount for each one. So let's just go ahead and do all those. So I'm going to make my stereo aux Here, Command Shift in, and then hold down Command and hit right arrow, down arrow. So it's stereo. Give it a name. Hit Tab to give it a name. I'm going to call this one Reverb Guitar. In here, and solo safe by holding down my command and clicking the solo button here. Put a reverb on here. I'm going to just use the same reverb that I used for my drums, but I'm going to use a slightly different reverb sound, a slightly bigger. Let's use this room 1 reverb sound over here. And now set the input here for bus. We're using bus 1 and 2, bus 3 and 4, so let's use bus 5 and 6. There's bus 5 and 6. And set our outputs on these for bus 5 and 6. So I'm going to go over here to bus 5 and 6. Give a little setting here, and I'm just going to hold down Option and drag those over as I just explained you can do. And I'm just doing this so I can quickly get some reverb going on. So let's bring our guitars back into the mix. Okay, so I've got these tracks grouped together here, and one thing you can see that happens when I've got them grouped together is when I move the fader up and down, it actually moves everything, all those 4 faders. And I don't really want to control all those. I want to actually just make this one a little bit louder without making this one louder. So what I can do is I can go over here to my groups and turn it off, so turn off my guitar, and I can hit the G key, or I can just click on it to turn it off here. See how it's deselected now? That turns it off. You can also see it's purple on my screen here. If I turn it off, it becomes just gray. It grays out. So I'm going to do that there. I'm going to turn it off, and now I can make adjustments. Cool. I'm going to skip ahead to where this other guitar comes in. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go over here and let's go to this one here. Turn the reverb send amount up a little bit, so we have a little bit more reverb coming from these guitars here. Okay, great. Starting to sound pretty good. There's still some kind of issues with things being super loud here and there, and we can actually see that in this mix in the edit window here. We can see, if I make this bigger, see how these are all guitar strums. If I solo these out, let's go ahead and solo this one. All right, that one's nice and soft. And then we have this one, which is like super loud. And then this one, which is also pretty loud. So really what I'd want to do is I want to bring this one up to this level here. Now, this is a good example of something that I would actually cut out to put on its own track, because these guitar strums are very different from what this person's playing on every other part of this track. Over here, it's like this kind of washy chords over here. Let's see, what else? These are actually, yeah. So I would take out these strums from everything else. So I'm going to go ahead and separate them out like this. And I'm going to put them on their own track. I'm just going to right click on this and duplicate it. And again, when you're doing your project, if you're using this for your project, you can get this deep if you want. You don't have to get this deep. This isn't, I'm not saying that you have to do all this stuff. I'm just kind of giving you an example of what I would do with this track if this were mine to mix. And I'm going to go ahead and call this one Guitar 3 Chords. So we know what it is. And in here, I'm going to put these chords actually more directly in the middle of things. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this one louder to match these. Or maybe, I don't know if we should go louder or come down the volume. Let's just go louder for now. So I'm going to pull this up. What I did was I just separated it out, as you've seen me do many times now. And down here, see how that says it's like a little 0 dB? It's got a little fader here. This is for our clip gain. I'm going to go ahead and turn this up a little bit. And I'll turn these ones down just a little bit as well to kind of bring them more in line with each other. I'll leave that one about where it was. And now these 3 chords should be at about the same level. Awesome. And they more or less are at the same level. I'm just going to trim this over. There we go. Cool. Okay. So now you can hear how the changes I just made kind of affect those. I just basically evened them out so they're nice and even with each other. So if we listen to this now, let's go in here and listen. Great. And you see how now they sound nice and smooth in there. And that's what we really want to do. We want to get them sounding nice and smooth. So like the first one isn't quiet and the second one's like super loud. We could use a compression for that, but I don't really want to make them sound overly compressed. I want to just make them sound nice and even there. So I'm using my, my clip gain to do that, which really kind of will help you smooth things out there. And this is a real world scenario. This happens all the time where you need to go in and use your clip gain. So in order to use the clip gain here, we just separate it out. I just hit Command E to separate it to its own clip. And now each clip you can see has its own clip gain in there. All right. Cool. So what I want to do real quick now is I want to load up a different project here. I'm going to go ahead and save this as, who are you? Let's save this one as Tony G. Who are you? Mix. What is today? Today's the August 5th. Mix 8/5 2020. There we go. So we're going to set the mix like this. So we can continue with that at another time, because I do want to show you some more stuff with that as we get into more of what we're learning about. And I just want to go ahead and pull up one of the other sessions here for your project. And again, this is like a different session here that you can use, because there were 3 sessions that you can use for your project. So we're going to go over here to teaching. I'm going to go into my Pro Tools editing projects, and we're going to go to Rubadoo, and we're going to use this one here. And I'm going to start from scratch with Rubadoo as well, so that you can see how I would start this one from scratch. So here's my Rubadoo. Now the first thing I'm going to do in here is go ahead and just make sure I'm looking at the right stuff in here. And this is like, I'm looking at too much here. So I'm going to go down to the bottom of my screen and pull this up, go to my inserts F through J and turn those off. I don't want to see inserts F through J. The other thing is it's a narrow mix view. I'm not a fan of the narrow mix view, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it off under View, Narrow Mix. There we go, boom. Just turn that off there. So now I've got all my stuff here. Everything is here. Now, The next thing that's important to do here is, for me, just make sure that it's in the right order. I think everything is in the right order with this one. I've got my drums over here, claps, and all this stuff. Now, this is not something you need to do for your mix that's due tonight. For your basic general mix, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and group these together real quick. So I got all my vocals are going to be grouped together. Command G, I highlight everything, I hit Command G, and I'm going to call this in my vocal. And in here, it's just the vocal group. I'm going to call it V for vocals. And I'm going to go ahead and just turn these down. See that? Once I group them together, I turn one down, it turns them all down, right? And then over here, I've got my guitars. And these are my electric guitars. So when I hit Command G on these, I'm going to call this an E guitar. And going to go ahead and E for E guitar, electric guitar. Turn these down. And there's my basses here. My acoustics are over here in a weird place. I'm going to move my acoustic guitars over here so they're next to my, on the other side of my bass. There we go. And this is going to be my acoustic guitar, so I'm going to Command G and hit A guitar. And that's just going to leave it at A for A guitar, acoustic guitar. And I've got my bass here, connect these for bass. And that's going to be B, yep, good. And then all my drums are right over here, Command G to group them, and drums. And I'm going to change that to D for drums. There we go. I'm also going to make sure I can see y'all's. There we go. So in case y'all are saying anything to me in the chat over here, I can see that. There we go. Good. Okay. Before I go any further, I'm going to save as. Save as. Grund. Rubadoo. I'm just going to call this one my Rubadoo mix. Boom. All right, so we can see. Hold on a second. Boom, like that. Let me just make sure I've got this stuff here, because we're going to bring in another keyboard sound into this. We're going to kind of explore our notes more today with this. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and start with rough mix here. And just make sure we're in a place that has a lot of stuff going on. Here's my, this is like a chorus section. It's got a lot of my drums happening, so we can just use that. Whoa, that's loud. Sorry about that. I didn't realize how loud that was going to be. Also, I want to make sure that I've made a master fader. So Command Shift in, and then hold down the Command and right arrow key to go between stereo and mono, and then down a couple times, and it will be your master there. All right, make sure that says output 1 and 2. Now, this one here, okay, so this one here, you noticed, maybe you noticed, if I make a new track in here, check this out. If I make a new audio track, stereo audio track, watch what happens. It comes in as, by default, the bus says, the output says bus 1 and 2. That is not at all what we want it to say. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this track, and we're going to fix that problem. That is definitely a problem, and we want to make sure we fix it. And the way we fix it is by going over here to Setup I/O. Okay, Setup I/O. And in here, what's happening is the default bus output is set to bus 1 and 2, because out here, the outputs are not mapped correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my bus, and I'm going to hit default, and now it's going to change it to be correct. And this will change it to be correct on your system. If you want to change your inputs and stuff like that to the defaults, you can change your inputs, outputs, all that stuff. Once you've done that, just hit OK. And now any new channel, any new track that I make should default to the correct outputs. And as you can see, it does default to the correct outputs now. This is just something that if you're using a session that comes from somebody else's computer setup or something like that, you're going to need to go through and do this real quick in the beginning before you can kind of start working on stuff, because your setup may be different from their setup, and Pro Tools might be a little bit confused. All right, so we got this here, our drums. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off these groups. I'm going to turn off my drums group by clicking on the drums group in the lower left-hand corner over here. Drums, turn that off. And now I'm going to turn these down so I can hear things correctly. All right, cool. And I'm going to move my claps over here next to my main drums. And I'm going to go ahead and pan these shakers. Now, as you can see with these, everything is stereo in here, which is not really, well, all these drums are all stereo. I'm not really sure why that's the case. Maybe it's coming from Logic or something like that, and Logic outputs everything as stereo by default. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a little pan like this on them. Turn them down a little bit so they're in there. There we go. All right. Cool. So we got a little drum sound there. Now let's go ahead and put some reverb on these. So I'm going to hit Command Shift N to pull up a new track. Right arrow, down arrow while I'm holding down Command. It's going to be my aux channel, and I'm going to call this one Reverb Drum. Boom. We've got this here now. Set up my input here to be bus 1 and 2, because that's just the first one we've got here. I'm going to go ahead and put a reverb on here. There we go. Let's use the, oops, not the black hole reverb. Black hole reverb is super, super cool, but it's not something you have, and also it's not for drums. The deverb. There we go. And in here, let's just use I'm going to use a small room here. Medium, small is fine. Let's use a small one, actually. Like that. Turn that decay up a little bit there. And make sure I set my gain. Now, all these drums here, I'm going to set them to go to this one here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the first one to go to bus 1 and 2. I just click on the send. And set it to bus 1 and 2 because that's what our bus here was. And now, put that up at the top, hold down Option to do that. And just set a little bit there. And what I'm going to do for all these others is I'm just going to drag them across like this to get a rough sound. And if I want to send something a little bit more to the drums, reverb, I can just go ahead and do it case by case. Maybe I want my, there we go, cool. So I just got, now my drums sound nice. You don't need to necessarily do this before you start mixing all the other sounds in, but I like to set up my reverb here, and also I just wanted to show you how to do that real quick there. All right, so now let's get my bass guitars going on. Which bass do we have in here? The bass guitar, this one here, the bottom one. Okay, so I'm gonna move the order of these. So I've got this is my main bass. Make sure I turn this off so they're not both being there. Awesome, that sounds pretty good. And then this bass here, let's listen. I just want to hear what this bass does. Cool. So we're doing pretty good with this. Our levels here, it might be a little bit hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and turn on my groups here and just turn my drums down a little bit and my basses down a little bit here so we're not running too hot. All right, cool. So I got this here, and now I'm going to get my acoustic guitars and pull these up. I'm going to turn my acoustic guitars group off here. Cool. And I'm going to set these to be basically the same levels, and we'll make adjustments as we need to. Let me just go over here and click and see what we need to do. Great, that sounds nice. And let's go ahead and get to where our solo guitars are. These are guitar solos, not actually electric guitars. I named them wrong. So what I can do is I can go over here to my guitar and change that. Let's modify, right click on it to select modify and call this solo guitar. And let's actually change that lettering as well to say the ID. Oh, that's right, you can't really change it later on, so whatever. We're stuck with the E. That's okay, not the end of the world. Let's just make sure the ending sounds pretty good. And again, this is all just gonna be rough stuff. Rough mixes, not our main. Awesome, sounds good. And now let's get our vocals in here. Where's my vocals? There's my vocals. Here, let's start with our vocal verse here. And let's see what's going on with this one here. Okay, cool. We've got this extra bit in here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my vocal group as well so I can edit just this part. Now again, if you want to use your strip silence like we talked about before, turn the strip silence on. Let's make this a little bit bigger here so we can see what's going on. And turn this up. I'm going to pull up my threshold here. There we go. These are some good settings for this. I think that looks pretty good. And strip that out. And if you want to do that for all these, you can. Although you don't necessarily have to. But let's just go ahead and strip these out like this here. Boom. Okay, there we go. So now I got this.
Your bone, saw the summer sun rising without you.
All right.
I wanna see your eyes staring back at me.
Okay, cool. So what I want to do with these is you can see that the verse, even without knowing the song much, you can just kind of take a look at it and kind of see like, oh, what's happening is this vocal is doubled up. And with a double vocal like this, let's just go ahead and pull this over like this and like this. And there we go.
Wanna feel your word.
The command is Command U. That is your command for strip silence. And make sure you have a track clip selected. Okay, so we have this in here. Now, with let's just go back real quick before we get too deep into these vocals. I just want to get a little bit of reverb going on what we talked about today for the vocals. I don't want too much reverb for our guitars, but let's do a little bit of reverb for our guitars here. So I'm going to do a reverb the same for all of them. Reverb, guitar, boom. So let's start with the guitar reverb and set up our bus. Let's do bus 3 and 4 here. And put a reverb on it, exactly what we talked about earlier. And let's use the deverb again. And we'll use a little bit of a little plate reverb, not a large one here like this, boom. And all these guitars, we'll just go over here and send, actually no, I'm sorry. For the guitars, let's use a room reverb. Let's use a small reverb here. And we're going to send these to bus 3 and 4, exactly what we just learned about. And let's just pull that down a little bit. Let's just see what this ends up sounding like. Make sure we solo safe these aux channels. Where are we? That acoustic starts right there. Yeah, that sounds pretty good, I think. We don't want too much going on there, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy this over to all of them. Now, what I do want to do, though, is I do want to see this here, this, oops, what do I do? Go in here to View, go to Expanded Sends, and I just want to see, because I want to see for my, the stereo panning here. And I'm just going to make sure these are all, we're all good with these here, and I'm going to just make sure these are there, boom. Oh, this is, wait. Yeah, should be good. Yeah, cool. Put the harmony here at the end. There we go, boom, boom, boom. Okay. So just make sure everything is panned correctly, because the panning does matter. I like to keep my panning, like I said, separate from, I don't want to just link it in, to the my send panning to this panning here, because I do like to do some different things with it sometimes. But there we go. So that amount of reverb should be good for our guitars. Let's go back over here to our verse.
Wanna feel your word, embrace me.
All right, and now let's get a nice little, let's do 2 reverbs for our vocals. Let's do 1 reverb for the verse and the bridge, and let's do another reverb for the chorus. Let's do a little bit of a bigger room for our chorus. And this is something that's pretty standard to do this kind of stuff. So I'm going to make 2 reverbs here, 2 auxes, and the first one here will be vocal verse reverb, or reverb vocal verse, and then the other one will be reverb vocal chorus, like that. And for me personally, I like to have my reverbs be next to where the tracks are that they're actually affecting, but that's a personal preference. That's completely up to you how you want to do that. So I've got this here, reverb vocal verse here, and bus will be bus 5 and 6. You can see again, just like I said earlier, the orange, bus 1 and 2, bus 3 and 4, these are all orange here, bus 5 and 6, boom. And in here, put a reverb on. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna just option drag this over because it's the same reverb, but I'm gonna put a different reverb on. I'm gonna put a small plate reverb on here. Let's put a small plate reverb. And on this one over here, I'm gonna option drag it over as well. But on this one, we're gonna put a slightly larger plate, like that. And we're going to make sure we're bus 7 and 8. And now for these reverbs here, this vocal, I'm going to send this over to bus 5 and 6. There we go, bus 5 and 6. And we're going to go ahead and let's solo this out just to hear what it sounds like.
Wanna feel your words, embrace me like skin up.
Awesome, that sounds nice. Maybe a little bit too much reverb on it. Pull that back a little bit. And I'm just gonna hold down option and drag that across. I'm gonna stereoize this. There we go. And I'm gonna do the same for, since we're here, I'm just gonna go ahead and drag it over to these, the bridge. I'm not exactly sure what the bridge is doing right now. We'll have to listen to it just to make sure, but that should work out. Let's hear everything.
Wanna feel your word, embrace me like skin across your bone, like skin across your bone. Saw the summer sun rising without you.
Awesome. Let's skip ahead to the bridge. All right, so we got that there. Now, what I might do here is with this acoustic guitar, this bass, this thing. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely EQ that because it's not really a bass, right? It's more of like a high guitar. It's like an alto guitar almost is how he's playing it. All right, so we got that there, and let's go over to our chorus. The chorus is over here. And let's start with the chorus, and let's get that chorus vocal coming in and just see what that sounds like. Let's see here, we got these ones also. So I'm just gonna bounce back and forth here, just make sure 7 and 8. So let's get 7 and 8.
Walking up that mountainside song, you said you are the one I will follow.
And we're just going to do a rough thing on this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I got some vocal reverb going on here, just a little bit, so it sounds nice and smooth for me.
Walking up that mountainside song, you said you are the one.
What I'm doing here is I'm holding down Option, and I'm noticing this is not like a big kind of choiry thing, so I'm actually going to bring this back down to a smaller plate. Let's actually pull it down a little bit here, get a little bit up more in your face, and honestly, probably we could just use the same exact reverb that we're using for these vocals over here. So why don't we do that? Let's scrap this. I'm going to get rid of all these. And we're going to get rid of this one here. We're just going to use the same exact reverb that we used for all of it. And we're going to name this one Vocal Reverb Vocal. No verse, no chorus, no nothing like that, just reverb vocal. And we're going to send all these to that same reverb, hold down Option, drag it on over. There we go, and I'm just going to Option drag it over for all these, and I can make adjustments later if I want to. Right now, what I'm going to do is just set these up so that they're basically the same panning wise. And if you are using the song for your project, you don't have to have it set exactly like this. I'm not saying that you have to have it set like this. I'm just saying this is how I'm setting it right now. So let's go to these here. Where does that one come in? This other stuff comes in all the way at the end. Let's go over here.
So much more.
Right, so there's a nice little thing there. We're going to go ahead and pan these hard. And we're going to pull it down because that was like suddenly like, whoa!
So much more. So much more.
Nice.
Do your worst and I will bear it. I will bear it all. Just for you. Do your worst and I will bear it. I will bear it all.
Awesome. Okay, so what have we got going on here? We've got a few things. We've got all of our reverb set up for the song, and we don't really need that much. We've got a basic leveling of stuff, and as you can see, I pulled these back quite a bit, but we're not. Who's the artist? I actually don't know who the artist is, AJ. This is from donated by one of the teachers at school. But let me see if I can poke around and find out for you. It's really cool, right? I actually did a search for the song on Google at one point, and I couldn't find this song. So I don't know. I don't know if it's ever released or what, but it's a pretty beautiful song. All right. So we've got our routing set up, and as you can see, it's not like, even with this song that has a lot of tracks, we don't have a super complex thing happening right now because we don't really need it for this. This is mostly an acoustic jam, and for an acoustic jam like this, you don't really want to go nuts with a whole bunch of different things. We are going to add some cool stuff to this, but for right now, I feel like we've kind of got enough going on with this as we have in it. Now, if we want to add some more instruments into it, we can do that later on. What I want to do now, though, is I want to go to the next part, because we've been talking a lot about send effects. The reason why we've been talking a lot about send effects is because send effects are so important. What I want to talk about now is the other way that we can use aux tracks. And once we're done with this, we're going to take a break and we're going to go to Zoom. So break is coming up in just a few minutes. But the aux tracks, we want to set up our external, the other thing we can use aux tracks for is for an external audio input. So let's say I have a keyboard connected up to my computer and I want to have that keyboard, I want to play that keyboard into my computer. Maybe I want to record it, maybe I don't want to record it. Doesn't really matter right now. If I just want to play my keyboard into my computer, maybe get some effects going on, what I'm going to show you now is how to do that. So this is assuming that you have an audio interface and some kind of synthesizer. It's this one down here. Send effects is here. External audio input is here. So what we do in Pro Tools is we create an aux track and then we set the input to your interface's input channel. And that's it. It's as easy as that. So here's how we do it. I'm going to go over here to Pro Tools, and I'm going to go into this section after my guitars, and I'm going to set this up for a synth. I'm going to have a mono input because the synthesizer I'm using is a mono synth. And we're going to go to aux input. I hit Command Shift in to bring up a new track. I hit Command down arrow to make an aux track, and I'm going to call this one Moog in. And hit enter, make that track, and now on here on my input, I'm going to set this interface to number 1, and as soon as I do that, now you can hear me playing that. Let's just shape the sound a little bit. So super basic. Just get this so I can actually come over here. Cool. Awesome. So we got that sound there. Let's just get a little bit of this one. All right, there we go. All right, so we got this cool little sound going on there. This is a Sub 37. It's a Moog Sub 37, and it looks like, oops, why not you, over here. Looks like this. This is what I'm playing with right here. Sub 37. My baby. Big fan of it. Rocking a keytar. I might have to change glasses for that one. There we go. Now I could rock a keytar. All right, keytar mode on. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great synth. Really, really awesome synth. Okay. I mean, keytar nerd rock, so I got to get the big frame glasses here. So, oh, the grandmother. Well, you can't find one, or they don't. Maybe because of everything is going on right now. Yeah, yeah. The grandmother's great. It's super, super cool. I just don't really have any space for something like that, but they're awesome. The sound is really cool. It's a really old sound. This is more of like a gee, well, I mean, what is a grandmother? Grandmother. I mean, they're not going to depreciate too much, man. A grandmother only costs $800, right? I think it's like $800. That's pretty cheap for a synth like that. But yeah, if you're going to try to find one cheaper than $800, good luck. All right. So yeah. They're $899. Sorry, yeah, you're right, about $900. So where were we? Oh, so we have this here. Now, the cool thing about this is I've got this here. It's like a super dry sound. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make another aux channel here. I'm going to call this one Reverb Synth. Yeah, I mean, the problem is, AJ, that these synths don't really depreciate that much because they're all handmade. They're really nice. People go after them really hard. So it especially for the grandmother, that's still a really popular synth. I was able to find a a D, what is it? Not the D sub. It's the one of their D series synths. I forget what the name of it. Like little small thing. I was able to find one of those for a couple $100 cheaper. But then when I sold it for the same price that I bought it from. So yeah, I mean, you might be able to find one for around 7 or maybe 8 used, but maybe not. All right, so here's my reverb synth aux channel, and you can see it's the same stuff. You can see here, look at this. This might be a little bit confusing and weird, but this is right, where I would use an input here for my synth as an aux channel, and then my effects would also be for also aux channel. So let's go ahead and use this. I'm gonna use let's use a mono aux and call this one delay synth as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use both of these aux channels here for my input on my Moog, so I can hear my Moog through some nice effects. The first one is a reverb. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to put a reverb on here. And since we're getting into some territory where I'm breaking from what you actually have in your home, I'm going to go ahead and use a nice reverb for this. Let's use one of my favorites is the black hole. Let's use the black hole here. This one's pretty cool. This one is made by Eventide, and in here I'm gonna set the send, set up my input here, bus 1 and 2, bus 7 and 8. Here we go, bus 7 and 8 on my input, and this one here, the output is gonna be bus 7 and 8. And now, let's see. Okay, cool. I'm gonna turn this thing, hold on, I'm gonna turn this mod. You can hear this beautiful big reverb sound. Let's grab some presets in here. Let's see, what do we got? The biggest reverb ever. Too big. One thing we need to make sure is that the mix here is set up like this. That one's pretty cool. Nice. All right, and I need to start a little bit less to it here, and let's get this.
So much more. Do your worst and I will bear it. I will bear it all. Just for you. Do your worst and I will bear it. I will bear it all. 'Cause the love is strong. No one love's not gone. It's still right.
All right, there we go. So figure out the key that it's in. It's like in a key with like all sharps. All right, so we got that there. Now I'm gonna set up this delay as well. Let's get a bus here, and we're gonna get bus number 9. Now one of the things about this one is because it's a mono input here, it's not gonna show me the same way that the other ones. It's not gonna show me in orange what I'm using, so I just have to know. I'm not using bus number 9 here on my input. I'm gonna put a delay on here. Let's go to my plugins. Let's go to delay. And once again, let's use an Echo Boy delay. This delay is a cool delay from Sound Toys. There we go. And let's use a basic Classic type of sound, dark echo, space echo. Let's use a space echo. And this one here, we're not going to use the tap tempo here. Let's use the echo here. Let's make sure we send it over to that. Actually, I didn't send it over yet. So the bus 9, we're going to send it to bus 9 there. Boom. There we go. Yeah. All right, cool. So you can hear that delay that's on there. Now, what I want to do is I want to get this delay, make sure we've got this set to dry and wet. There we go. Cool. Set that like that. Now, what I want to do is I want to get this delay going into the reverb, and this is where things start to get interesting. The delay, we can set up remember, anything we set up with this routing is the same. They all work the same. So I've got my synth here going in, sending out to bus 7 and 8, which is my reverb. I can also have this delay that I just put on here. I can also have that going to bus 7 and 8. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to hold down Option and just drag this one over. And now it's also going to bus 7 and 8. So now listen to the sound, how it changes. Here, let's listen without it. It's hard to hear. It's kind of hard to hear with this one here, but the delay, it is in there. You can hear it more on these lower notes. Awesome. I'm going to turn that down a little bit so it's not totally in our face, like that. And let's go over here to the beginning of everything. And cool. Not a huge fan of that delay. I just wanted to show you kind of like what you could do with it. But maybe a different delay might be better, like a slower type of thing. Let's see if we got something a little bit better for slower stuff here. Analog here. What does that one sound like? Yeah, maybe a bit better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. I am going to show you right now, this song is not in any kind of tempo. So, I mean, the song is in a tempo, but Pro Tools is not matched to that tempo. And in another lesson, we are going to talk about how to do that, how to match the tempo of the audio into the song here. But let's do this. Let's just make sure we've covered everything here. Yeah, so here's in the notes about the solo safe. Command click the solo button on the track. If you make a track solo safe, it will always play even when other tracks are soloed. You always want to solo safe your aux tracks. You never want to solo safe your audio tracks. Did I solo safe these? I did not. The only exception really is for this Moog here. You may or may not want to solo safe that, but I don't really see any reason why you shouldn't solo safe that one too. That just means that I can always reach over here and play that synth sound. Okay, so got that. What else do we got in here? Just to make sure we covered everything. Yeah, we should. Yeah, we're good with this. Yeah, everything is right here. It's all in this picture right here. So you can see how we've got this here. So what happens is the synth output goes into, through an audio cable, goes into my audio interface, and I just pull up the input on the audio interface and make sure it's sent to my left and right. Okay. So just one more time just to take a look at that. This one here is set to input number 1, and that's my synth here is going into that one there. And we can record, we can play that through. Now this setting is not for recording the synth. If I wanted to record this synthesizer, what I can do is basically just set up an audio channel, mono, and call this one Moog pluck. set it for input number 1, like this, boom. And I would want to set these to be exactly the same here. I don't need to listen to it because I'm listening to it from this one here. What I can do is record this in, so if I go in here and I hit go,
Wanna feel your word, embrace me, like skin across your bone, like skin across your bone. Saw the summer sun rising without you. Wanna
right? So now I've got that I just recorded in, and there it is. It's all right there that I just recorded. And essentially all I did was I just used the same input. I just set up my audio channel exactly how I had my aux channel set up, and there we go. We're good to go with that. And if I want to listen back to that,
wanna feel your word, embrace me, like skin across.
and you can hear how off my playing is here. But you get the idea. That's how you can set that up. So these are just set up exactly the same. In this case now, it just means that if I play it, I can hear it coming through over here on the aux channel, but I can actually record it into this audio channel. And I have them both set exactly the same with my sends and stuff like that. Okay. Once we start talking about MIDI stuff, then we're going to come back and talk about how to record this with MIDI. But this is just strictly for an audio type of setup. All right. That brings us to the end of talking about routing, inserts, and sends in Pro Tools. Tomorrow we're going to get deeper into plugins, and we're going to deal with the inserts a bit more tomorrow. We're going to kind of dig deeper into inserts in the next class on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. We're going to take a break.